Blog Talk Radio.
We interrupt this broadcast for an emergency announcement. A massive earthquake. The flood has reached. All roads into and out of are closed. No medical services. Store shelves have been stripped.
What's coming? Are you ready? You are at the right place to hear the best ways to stay safe and weather the coming storm. Welcome to Power Preppers. Here is your host, Patricia Baker.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Power Preppers. I am your host, Patricia Baker, and my mission is to make getting prepared for any emergency easy and efficient. So get informed and get prepared, and be sure to listen to the show every Thursday from 1 to 2. Also, please remember to sign up for our newsletter at supernaturalgirls.com for all the latest show information, discounts, giveaways. We've got some great stuff there, and it's for both Power Preppers and Supernatural Girls Radio. So we've got great stuff, so make sure you go over there and sign up or you're going to miss out. So it's supernaturalgirls.com. And this Saturday night on Supernatural Girls Radio, my co-host Becky Andreasen and I will be speaking with Algonquin elder Michael Bastine about memories of Tuscarora medicine man Mad Bear Anderson. Now, Michael is the author of Iroquois Supernatural, and you may remember hearing from him about his book about a month or so ago. He came on the show, and he was a terrific and very compelling guest. And Michael was an apprentice to Mad Bear, one of the greatest medicine men of all time. So be sure to join us this Saturday and every Saturday night, 9 to 11 Eastern Time. It's just going to be a great show. I had the occasion to speak to Mad Bear Anderson one time on the phone, and it was a wonderful connection. He was very open with me, and he said something about moon rocks that really caught my attention. He said that Washington had called several medicine men in to talk about moon rocks. Apparently, the moon rocks that they brought back from the moon started to grow. And it made them very nervous because they knew eventually they were going to grow right out of their glass containers. There would be no stopping it. So Mad Bear was one of the medicine men that was called in to investigate this. And what happened was Mad Bear decided he did not want to go there directly because I guess he had other concerns about being in the presence of something that he said did not belong on this planet. So what he ended up doing was calling together several other medicine men, and they did ceremonies to help stop the progression of the growth of these moon rocks. And guess what? It worked, apparently. So we're all safe, thanks to Mad Bear and some of his cohorts. So, again, this is going to be a great show. Be sure to tune in. And, again, you can find the link to the show at supernaturalgirls.com. You can tune in there. You can also listen to any of our archive shows at your convenience. You can download them and just have a terrific time listening to all the great wisdom that comes from our expert guests from around the world. And we have many more coming up. We've got Travis Walton coming up and a whole bunch of other wonderful people that are going to be sharing all of their experiences with you and me and Becky Andreasen. So it's going to be an absolutely great time. Don't miss it. Now, today, as soon as Evan gets here, we are going to be speaking with him. And this is Evan Pritchard. He is a descendant of the Micmac Native Americans, and Evan is the author of Bird Medicine, Native New Yorkers, and No Word for Time. So our topic today is adapting Native American strategies for today. And I am thinking I may have to call Evan and tell him to join us because I don't see him here yet. So let me track Evan down, and we will get him on the board with us in about 1 second. So I hope everybody's having a beautiful day and enjoying this bitter cold that we're having up in the north. I don't know about where you are, but it's kind of chilly up here. So bear with me for 1 minute while we get Evan here on the board. And there he is. Perfect timing. Okay. So let's bring Evan onto the show. Hello,
okay.
Evan. This is Patricia Baker with Power Preppers, and you are live on the air.
Hello, Patricia.
Hello. How are you?
Hello. How are you?
I'm good. I was just tracking you down since I didn't see you on the board. I just gave you a wonderful introduction.
Oh, good. Good timing.
I told everybody about your fabulous books, Bird Medicine, Native New Yorkers, and No Word for Time. And our topic for today, which is adapting Native American strategies for our difficult times that we seem to be having, and apparently we are going to be facing more. So tell me, what do you think are some important things to discuss today with our audience about survival, and what can we learn from the Native American traditions?
Well, it occurred to me that right now some of your listeners are probably getting cold for a variety of reasons. Maybe their power's out because of any number of things. Maybe they're protesting their smart meters and turning off the energy. I don't know. Maybe they've been in a storm, but, in some regions it's getting cold. And, I'm working on a new book called Full Snow Moon, which is about, tales and teachings about wintertime among Native Americans. And, romantic stuff, but also really practical. Because, with solar flares also on the rise and the sun fluctuating, it's playing havoc with electricity, and people could be without power unexpectedly. So that's one thing I thought would be pretty relevant. I don't know how cold it is where you are, probably not very cold, but...
It's pretty chilly today. I'm not ready for these chilly temperatures, but it's feeling more and more like winter.
Mm-hmm. Well, winter's our friend, you see. A lot of people don't want to hear that, but winter is
I'd
beautiful.
I'd like to believe that. I'd really like to believe that.
Okay. All right. Well, Micmacs, I'm from the Micmac Nation, ancestry is from there, and it's way up north, and it's, we kind of like to brag about how snowy it gets and everything. And
now
you have to make friends with it.
You're up in Maine. Was this your family is up in Maine and Canada? Is that where the region is you're talking about?
Yes, that's the Micmacs are from Maine and the Maritime, which is eastern
Canada.
Canada.
Yeah, that is pretty far north, so it does get colder up there than here. That's for sure.
So, I thought it would be good to talk a little bit about the cold and how to deal with it. I mean, it occurred to me one day. Just out of the blue, I thought, well, our ancestors lived for 10,000 years without any electricity, and it was cold, and how did they do that? And if they can do it, can we do it? And that was one of those big revelations to me. Well, there's got to be a way, and we might have to go back to that, And so it's all part of the prepper, handbook there. You got to learn to, keep warm without that kind of power. But also, another thing you and I talked about is how to adapt Native American techniques of survival in general to the modern day. And, there are a lot of caveats that I talk about when I give talks on, survivaling, because it's not the same as it was. You have there's giardia in the water that we're no longer used to, and so I recommend filters such as the Berkey filters,
Oh, yes.
that can kind of equal the playing field, and so that we can drink from our streams again, And,
because there's a lot of
things
stuff
like
in
that.
there that's not good for us.
There's a lot of, there could be fracking pollutants, who knows? And
that's right, yes.
And obviously the radiation from Fukushima, which may be getting into some people's water, that's a different story. I think I've read that the Berkey filter is the only one that claims that it can filter out the radiation because they actually have size. The particles actually have some kind of microscopic heft, and it can stop them. But well, I guess it has to. But there's all these kind of things that didn't exist before,
Yeah, and so
in terms of
you're right,
problems.
because we're challenged on these from the level of pollutants that we've introduced to our environment so foolishly.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to find ways to get ready to handle that when our tap water stops flowing, and we have to find other ways to filter. And as you mentioned, getting warm in a cold climate, I mean, that's a concern of mine for sure, living here in New England and going into winter. What do we do?
Right.
And what did the Native Americans do?
Well, I when I was young, I asked my elders, the older people, the relatives, because they were bragging about, of course, the old days, and they had to walk, the story, 4 miles to school.
That's right.
In 6 feet of snow, butt naked. You know the story, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, they throw in the naked part because, they have to be vigorous, right? But, and they always said, well, you get used to it, right? And that turns out to be scientifically true, is that it takes 30 days for your blood to thicken during the month of November. And so then December, if you continually are outside and don't mind the slight bit of discomfort as you adjust, like the toad in the boiling water, only reverse, as that is getting gradually colder and you're outside every day, your blood does thicken a little bit every day until by, say, December 1st, your blood goes quite far, and that if you continued to, say, walk up north and get colder and colder, your blood would continue to thicken until you would be comfortable outside with, say, below freezing. Now, 0, by the way, I'm going to say people are going to run outside, I'm going to adjust in less than 30 days because I'm better than everybody. Yeah, you might freeze to death. But about 0, it so happens that the temperature we call 0, natives didn't have a word for that, but it's that temperature at which you'd really better cover up a little bit. But freezing is no brick wall. I mean, freezing is when water freezes. But if you let your blood thicken over the 30 days, you adjust to freezing temperatures fairly nicely. And the problem is then when you get to a really warm area, you might feel overheated. So there are 7 keys in this book that I'm working on for next year, not this year, Full Snow Moon, talking about ways to keep warm. And this actually appeared in my Landkeeper newsletter 2 years ago. If anybody wants, they can email me, and I'll give them a free copy because it's electronic, as long as their computers are still working. And they can evan.pritchard7@gmail.com, and I'll send them a free copy and specify which one they want. It's the winter, the joys of winter. Let's see, issue. Penetrating Beauty of Winter was the name of the article. So 7 ways to keep warm in the winter without electricity. Okay, you ready for this?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm on the edge of my seat. I want to know.
Okay, eating and drinking appropriately. I know that doesn't sound exciting, but it's actually a lifetime skill, mastering eating and drinking, because there's a lot to it. Before the advent of the white man, the official beverage of the Native Americans was water, and the second official beverage, far from Gatorade, the second is tea, and they would use everything. They would use bark, they would use needles, they would use herbs, all kinds of things. Throw it in the hot water, but you got to know what you're doing, because too much of anything can, produce alkalides and give you a headache and make you sick. But you got to know, 1 or 2, reheatings, then you're done. But that they would heat it up on a fire, and fire, of course, is essential. We'll get to that. And that drinking, the warm tea really heats the body very nicely, a couple cups a day. That when you get to the foods, this is a very interesting subject in that each food warms you differently. And if you know how each one reacts to you or how you react to it, then you can keep your body temperature warm without electricity. Now, let me take brown rice, for example. We had Native American wild rice, which is still available.
Okay.
And it has a husk, which has, the cilia in it, which is fiber, but also has phytic acid, which they say now depletes your minerals. But actually, because in brown rice, that has the husk on it, that we eat in health food stores, there are pluses and minuses to the husk. However, when you digest it, it's a complex carbohydrate, and as you digest it, your body heats up because it's straining a little bit, just like an engine would strain going up the hill. So it makes you warmer.
Good. You want it to produce heat, so that's a good thing.
Right, but you got to remember that your body's producing heat because it's straining, so you don't want to overdo it. Like, I mean, a pound of rice, I'd say is a lot of rice. I wouldn't eat more than that in one sitting. But oats, they warm you up. Your grandmother told you, and it's true. Similar reason. Corn warms me up more than anything, and I think also because it's complex. But, 1 ear of corn and my body temperature always goes up, as long as it's the good stuff. And so then, in combination with your foods, you have like a serape or a blanket, say Native American blanket, and there's different kinds of blankets. There's wool and there's cotton, and they all have different amounts of heating effect. The combination of eating the warming foods, and red meat, more warming than white meat, what you eat, you have to go by feel, produce a certain temperature, but then you take on and off blankets of different kinds to regulate your heat in a cold room. Now, through all that, we want to say that, those two work in combination. And, again, we're not talking about any kind of electrical thing. Another thing is to move around. Now, if you're in front of a fire, you don't want to move around because you're wasting the calories that are coming in for no use, unless you really have to move somewhere. But when it's cold, you should move around, even though you're using up body fuel. In other words, your calories are body's fuels. They're like gasoline in your car. And so if you're moving around out in the cold, you're keeping your circulation going, keeping you warm. You're also using up calories, ironically. And if you're sitting in front of a fire, you're absorbing heat directly, and you want to just sit there still. So these are kind of things that, that help overall in surviving without without electricity. One of the things is you can warm pool, and just thinking economically, 5 people or even 15 people can all receive the same heat from a single fire, which means that, it's efficient the more people there are.
Right.
In terms of wood, there's some formula out there, and it's not on paper, but Native Americans know you have just so much wood that you've cut, and then you have so many people. Well, if they're all organized and they gather together, then they can all enjoy the heat from the same 4 logs. So in terms of creating calories, you can create more calories among your people if you all go and warm pool together in front of the same fire. Now, moving on, another thing is, of course, you want to stay dry. If your shoes and socks are wet, then it doesn't matter what you're doing, you're going to get cold. And, you could rub your feet, you can change your socks, you could put the socks out. Sometimes you're better off taking your shoes and socks off, and a lot of times, and I think campers all know this, but just never thought about it. If your shoes and socks are wet and you're outside and it's cold, you're probably better off taking them off and putting them near the fire and just keeping your feet off the snow if that's the situation.
Yes.
And then get them dry and put them back on.
Well, let me just ask you a question about red meat versus white meat, because I think it's a very important thing. And I remember years ago I had the privilege of meeting Rolling Thunder, and he told us a very funny story about people who came to visit his encampment, and they were serving red meat. And the people were vegetarians that came to visit. And he said, okay, no problem. You can eat your vegetables and we'll eat the meat because we're going to stay warm. You won't. So, he was very clear about the role that red meat played in survival. So now you're bringing that back around, and I find it very interesting because there are a lot of people who won't touch red meat, and I understand their concerns, but at the same time, when you're needing to stay warm, it's good to know the difference between red meat and white meat or no meat.
Well, right, and there's those, and then fish. Fish is generally almost always good, but in warm climates, being vegetarian actually works because it's a pure food, and it warms you enough to tolerate, say, the cold of southern India, which is nothing. But then, in the Mi'kmaq climates, we basically red meat is almost part of the religion, because it's considered a sacred sacrament. And, of course, we have ceremonies to make sure that, the deer or the whatever animal has given us permission, and that may sound absurd to some, but that's how we believe, and there's a ritual for that. And, yeah, the red meat does have a tendency to become toxic, both on the shelf and in your body, in warm climates. But in cold climates, you burn it up by motion, so it doesn't really get a chance to be toxic, and, of course, you don't want to overdo it. And nowadays, there's all this about, there's stories about how, God, I'm going to try to remember this, I'm not getting carnic acid or something. I'm not getting it. But they've just discovered aspects to red meat that are, controversial. It's a whole other show, probably.
Yeah.
Carnitine. Carnitine.
Oh, carnitine.
So
okay.
Everybody go out and read up on carnitine because it's very controversial now as to whether it's good or bad.
Well, and certainly, hundreds of years ago when Native Americans were in this country and roamed the plains, and we were talking about a whole different quality of meat than we have today, even though I know many people
you can bet it was grass-fed.
Yeah, really. So,
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm just saying.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I said I do eat red meat, and I always eat the grass-fed meat.
Yes, and there are a lot of farms, actually, that are returning to that, to grass-fed and no antibiotics and things like that. And, of course, it makes it much more expensive. But, again, we're not saying here, and I don't think you're saying this either, that you have to eat a ton of meat. But certainly in the cold winter months, it does seem to make some sense.
Yeah, it does. And, again, we always ate fish every day, regardless of the season. And in the ice, you'd cut a hole in the ice if you can. Do ice fishing in an ice house. Our people, Canadian Indians, always made ice houses, and they'd slide around on the ice, and then you cut a hole inside the house and then fish inside the house, and that certainly keeps you warm. They would also build fires on the ice, and that really only works in Canada because they'd have lakes that would freeze down to 3 feet.
Wow.
And a fire isn't going to harm the ice. But nowadays, because of global warming, it's getting so warm in Canada in the winter that they're even canceling hockey games. And if they cancel hockey games in Canada, it's got to be bad because the ice is too weak now. And so it also has affected the ice houses, and it's affected the tradition of building fires out on a frozen lake. So all that may be changing. But in terms of survival, anybody can build a fishing house like that on the ice and, dig a hole, cut a hole through the ice and fish.
Well,
so fire is the big part of that. And different barks, different kinds of woods burn differently, as campers know, and that's mentioned in those survival guides, all the different kind of wood.
What about fish keeping you warm? How does that compare to red meat or chicken or something like that?
Well, my understanding is it's a lot like chicken in terms of heat, maybe a little warmer. It has oils in it.
So the oils probably help quite a bit.
Yeah, the chicken doesn't have that.
Right.
So fish every day. And they say the word nemech kind of means you eat it every day, but may not be literally true. But different woods burn at different speeds. So some burn hotter than others, and so there's whole books on that. And, hickory is hardest and burns the longest, with oak a second place, and beech wood a third. And then come the birches and maples, and then comes ash and elm, and then tamarack, yellow pine, chestnut. It's a hierarchy. Spruce is the soft wood, and that burns, really fast.
Right.
And Micmacs like princess pine, by the way, but it burns so quickly it's a fire starter. But you have in the stories tales of birch bark burning very quickly, and birch bark actually kind of explodes when you burn it, which can be good or bad. But it's an excellent fire starter. You should always bring birch bark with you. I did this with some kids when we were doing a survival camping. We did 1 week in the wilderness with a bunch of city kids from Harlem and the Bronx, and guess what? We had a hurricane for 3 days.
Oh,
and
my
goodness. Those kids really kept their attitudes up, but it was miserable. I mean, we had feet of water everywhere. And I showed them how to dig pits so that the water would drain into the pits and keep the land drier. And then, of course, you take the pits and then you kind of bucket out the water and then throw it in the woods and then fill it with chips and wet and bark. But one thing we did was we gathered birch bark, and actually on the 4th of July we used it as fireworks because it explodes actually in some of that fire. But it also was really good for starting the fires.
Right. Well, you're talking about things, Evan, that take a lot of work, and it makes me think about the culture that we have here in the United States today. And I just wonder how many people would even if they knew how to do this, would be able to do things like this to survive. And I guess it's a choice people will have to make when the time comes. But again, it's all the more reason to do what you can to be healthy and in good, fit condition today before anything hits the fan. Because you're talking about digging trenches or digging holes and draining water and starting fires with whatever you have handy, matches or even 2 sticks if you got to rub them together. So, these are the things that I think about when I look at our culture today, which is so used to being sedentary and eating junk food. So those 2 things combined are kind of creating the perfect storm for people not to be able to have the stamina to do the things it would take to survive.
Well, my calculus on this is it's going to be, if the whole grid goes down, and, it could happen because of just in terms of the sun's instability right now, sending off a lot of X-flares and, solar flares and coronal ejections happening. We've been lucky so far. But, if the grid goes down, the problem is there's too many people trying to survive off the land, and they are going to have to work twice as hard as their Native American ancestors did to survive. And I just want people to, I don't want to scare them from learning new ways, but, let's hope that it doesn't go down because, it's going to be harder because there's more people, and also the environment has been built over and cemented over, and so there's less there. Plus, it's a full year cycle living off the land. And again, I can't say that I have personally lived off the land without electricity for, more than a week or 2. But, I studied this, and I've talked to people who have, which is rare enough. And, it's a full year cycle, and you build months in advance everything you're doing, and so it's not so much work because it's a full year cycle. But to start up a cycle is famously hard, and it was hard in the 1600s, and it's harder now. So, be very prepared.
Yeah, I think your message is well taken because you're talking about preparation a year ahead of time, and certainly Native Americans back in the day were always thinking along those lines. They were thinking that here we are in the summer, but we're preparing for winter. So we don't think that way. We're kind of like, I'm going to go to the grocery store right now that's 5 minutes away and grab the supplies I need and come home to my heated house. So I don't need to think about a month from now. But actually, we do need to start thinking that way because of the X-flares, which you mentioned, which are now becoming more numerous and more serious. And I agree with you. I think we've gotten extremely lucky so far, but that doesn't mean it's going to last. So, this whole forethought process for yourself, for your family, it's something that's why I'm doing the show, and I'm so glad you're here with me today to talk about all of this. It's a very critical time that we're in. So we do have a question.
Well, I want to say, Gary Null once asked me, okay, so what if all the electricity goes down? What do New York people do? We just go up to the Hudson Valley Wall, live off the land. I said, sorry, it's too late. Can't do it. Not that many people cannot live off the land. It's just not possible. He didn't like that answer.
I'm sure he didn't. And I'll tell you, I've heard this too from city folk who say, look, because I'm out in a rural area, and they say, well, we're just going to come out where you are. And I can tell you what the people around here have said. They've said, don't bother. We don't want you here, and we won't accept you here. We'll just make sure you turn around and go the other direction. So, because they're the people that live in these rural, very small towns up here that are still heavily forested, I mean, they're well aware of what the land can sustain and what it can't in terms of numbers of people, just like you know. So it's, these people that have these fantasies are going to bug out and come here. It's not a good idea.
And live like Indians,
Right.
Right. Well, they should have not, I'll be rhetorical for a moment. If they were planning to ask advice of the Indians, they shouldn't have killed most of them, especially the ones who knew what they were talking about. And
That's
so,
right.
yeah, there's a lot of the people who understood these tricky things, are gone. Like, how hard it is to spear a fish? That's really hard. And there are a few people alive who can still do it. But the corporations are killing off those people anyway. But, yeah, that's a good way to catch a fish, but it's hard. And they think, I'm going to sit there with a net. I'm going to catch the fish with a net. Well, my, elders have told me that's not really how it works, I mean, you get the net after you catch the fish, and then it helps you. But, people have wrong ideas about, how easy it is. You know what I mean? It's not that easy.
It's not that easy.
In the old days when the environment was very, very strong and healthy, and you had a full year cycle, they say that you only had to work 3 or 4 days out of the week, and then the other 3 days you kind of, take it easy and, paint and make drums. But nowadays it would be very hard.
Yes, it
so
would.
Be prepared, if the whole deal goes down, as they say, be prepared to work hard. Certainly at first. And
absolutely.
there are ways to do it.
There are. Well, let's take a short break here, Evan, and we're going to come right back and continue this very important conversation. So everybody stay tuned.
Sure.
If you have a question, call in at 646-478-0828. Our wonderful call screener, Becky, will take your question and put you in queue. So that number again is 646-478-0828. Stay tuned, everybody.
Okay.
Your property tax bill. Have you seen it lately? It's frightening. Your property taxes are going up while your home value is going down. It's time to fight back and win. For the real truth about the property tax system, get attorney Pat Quintilian's book, Are You Getting Screwed on Your Property Taxes? How to Find Out and How to Fix It. Attorney Quintilian answers all your questions and gives you the facts you need to fight a property tax bill that is spiraling out of control. You'll also read about what happens to property owners who don't check their property records, only to find out too late they're taxed on square footage, fixtures, and even buildings that they don't own. Is this happening to you? Learn your rights. Buy attorney Pat Quintilian's book today. Are You Getting Screwed on Your Property Taxes? How to Find Out and How to Fix It. Available on Amazon.com.
Sometimes life can be a challenge. Would you like insight and guidance to help you make the best choices right now? Contact Helene at angelslighthouse.com to make your personal appointment for a psychic reading or energy alignment. Helene is a direct channel to the angelic realm and is remarkably capable of connecting to the living as well as to your loved ones on the other side. Helene is available to clients all over the world via phone or Skype, and it's simple to set up a group reading anywhere. Visit angelslighthouse.com, where you'll find an easy way to schedule right online. And while you're there, sign up for the Angels Lighthouse newsletter and receive information on all the free energy circles, giveaways, and jewelry with a message. Visit angelslighthouse.com and contact Helene today.
Are you ready for a new experience of freedom and powerful connection? Would you like a positive, effortless change in your life? Then come to CosmicFusion.com, where we offer the most advanced energy clearing and expansion techniques in the world, with a quantum vortex energy to activate your divine blueprint and life's purpose. When your soul leads the way with cosmic fusion and quantum vortex energy, you can break clear of past difficulties and blocks with the power of the source. With cosmic fusion, the source energy does the work for you. It's easy and effortless. Listen to our free meditation right from our Cosmic Fusion website, the Cosmic Code Meditation. Sign up for one of our interactive webinars today. Come to Cosmic Fusion, www.KOSMICfusion.com, to experience an effortless awakening and transformation. Are you ready for an upgrade? Are you ready for a new experience of living in the fifth dimensional magic and powerful connection? Then visit CosmicFusion.com today.
CosmicFusion.com.
We are back on Power Preppers Radio, and we are speaking today with Evan Pritchard. Evan is a descendant of Micmac Native Americans. He is the author of some terrific books that you can find on Amazon.com, Bird Medicine, Native New Yorkers, and No Word for Time. We are talking today with Evan about adapting Native American strategies for today. Welcome back, Evan. And we've got a phone call. Actually, we have a chat room question, and so I want to ask you this on their behalf. This person would like to know if there are some types of trees that when you lean against them out in the wilderness, they can actually keep you warmer than other trees.
Wow. I'd like to know what they are.
Okay.
That would come in handy. But I don't know. I can't think of one.
Okay.
I don't know
you
that,
did mention before there are certain wood burns longer and hotter than others, and the birch bark that explodes, it's a good fire starter. So just wanted to review that. That's all great information. So, again, we're talking about survival techniques, and it's not as easy as some people may think.
Mm-hmm. Right. One thing I want to mention
Go ahead.
Oh, I would say I have this Native American friend. He's a Mayan, and he's used to warm temperatures, and he's used to being able to live in the woods and be free of bills and money. He doesn't like to use money. And he came to New York State, upstate New York. Gets really cold, and he was living outside, and it was starting to get winter. And I said, "Oh, so you're going to move inside?" He said, "Oh, no, I like it outside." And then it got really cold, and I saw him in a very cold time in like January, February. And I said, "So you're still outside?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, what are you learning from this?" He says, "Winter is teaching me what it means to be cold." And I think it's an important lesson. And then the following winter, he was still, hanging around living outside. I ran into him, inside, because I'm no fool. And I asked him how he was dealing. He said he was living on this particular mountain. I won't give away the location. He's not living there now, but it's a sacred mountain in the Hudson Valley. And I said, "So how do you do it?" He says 3 tents, not one. And he described how he created a kind of a modern igloo of sorts by having a small tent, a larger tent, and then a much larger tent. And this is out on the mountain, and he would have a small tent, and he would eat, of course, like I said, the corn, the potatoes, and the rice, the warming foods. And then he would sleep in the small tent and be able to warm that tent with his body heat. But it had a second tent around it to create an air cushion, which is very, very important. I think, like I say, a lot of campers know the importance of the air cushion. It applies to clothing, to insulation of all kinds. And then he went another step, because just as guys, seriously living outside in zero weather, he put a third tent around that. Of course, you have to start with the third tent. You have to think ahead, and then put the second one in, and then the first one, and then you crawl in through the 3 tents, and then you stay warm at night because your body heat stays inside the little pup tent. And that was probably, if I were, I haven't done the 3 tents, but I would say if somebody's seriously thinking, well, maybe they can't pay their bills and they're just going to let it all go and live outside, I would say, talk to this guy, because I think he had an excellent idea. It's not that much money. He got them, I think, secondhand or donated, and that would work. That would absolutely work. You'd be pretty comfortable in that little tent inside the other two.
Your little igloo. That is amazing. And here he is coming from the deep southern part of the world and all the way up here where it is freezing cold, and letting winter teach him. That's quite an experience.
And I think what winter told him was, it's pretty awful being cold sometimes, and there are ways to get around it. And so I think he said it's worth it, So so that's what I would recommend if people had to do at least a double tent.
Yes, so
like
that's
that.
a great
another
idea.
See, one of the things that I wanted to talk about a little bit was we're talking about adapting Native American ideas to our modern situation. And, how do we live if your house is completely electric and the power goes out, and it's such an absurd situation anyway, but so we find ourselves in these situations. How do you survive the winter when you're inside a house which has no power? Well, there's certain kind of tents, and I've known people who have done this, that can go in your bedroom, and then actually can maybe slide your mattress inside of, or get an air mattress and slide that in. By the way, water beds are terrible for wintertime. Nobody should try water beds in the winter.
Right.
But they'll freeze,
Yeah,
and then the heated
exactly.
one, the heat unit won't work when the power is out. So you're going to be sleeping nice. So water beds are no good. But the air mattresses can work, and, you manually pump them up. Or a small mattress, and some people use yoga mats, but you could put a tent inside your house, and probably one is better than none, and, put your mattress of whatever kind inside your tent, and then close it up. Some people use heat sources in the tent. That's risky. Some people use heat sources out, such as, they have the new Colemans that are powered by, the canisters.
Yes.
And there's a new kind that is very, very low on fumes, but you do have to have ventilation, and the ventilation brings in cold. So again, it's a balance. Right. But and again, remember we're talking about the 30-day blood cycle. It depends on where you are in the 30 days. But people use tents inside their houses sometimes when there's no power, and that seems to work.
That's a terrific
well.
idea also, Evan, and I never would have thought of that, that's for sure, but it certainly makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you have a lot of square footage and there's no way you're going to be able to heat it all, you got to be able to heat yourself. Right. So it makes sense to keep a tent handy just in case you need that if the grid goes down or something else happens. I mean, I think as we discussed earlier, we're getting hit from all sides, and it could be more than one calamity that causes problems in different parts of the world and in this country. So, again,
I have a list of about 10 major. Yeah, there's about 10 different major things that could happen right now that would shut up your power, including terrorists, including cyber warfare, including solar flares, X-flares, including you running out of money, including your power company running out of power, including all kinds of, things if you think about it. It's a long list of things, so it's worth thinking about. It's not fanatical to think about your power going out. And also there's a movement now about, some of the smart meters that are being put on. It's a whole other show, but some people are allowing their power to be turned off rather than, be subjected to what they feel are EMF frequencies. I've talked to people who have allowed their power to go off, and these are nurses and doctors and lawyers who just cannot tolerate the EMFs from these smart meters, and they're learning this technique. So that's added to the list this year. So the list keeps growing. It
does.
Of reasons to know how to do this. So yeah, this is I'm forgot where we left off. We were talking about these different things. Like another thing is, of course, and this goes way back. I know farmers in big houses, they generally use drop cloths, and say in November they have these open doorways, and they'll close one of the interior doorways, and then December they'll close another one, and they keep closing down, and in January everybody's living in one little room, and the doorways are covered by plastic.
So that's another way to provide further insulation and keep everybody's heat kind of contained in one smaller area.
Yeah, and that's often a room with a fireplace, by the way. But again, you have to be careful. Fireplaces can suck all the air out of a room as well as bring it in, so you got to kind of know your fireplace. But fire is important. I've talked to, William Commando was my adopted elder, and he adopted me, I adopted him, and he actually lived for 5 years in the wilderness in the 1920s. It was around 1920 to 1925, I'd say. He was a boy, but he was sent out there to avoid the even worse situation of the residential schools, and he survived with nothing for years. And I often said, I had whole interviews with him, some on film and on tape, of how he did it, and it's quite remarkable. And someday I'll probably include those in this book I'm writing. But, my impression was, spending a few days in the wilderness without fire is possible, but you'd really rather have the fire.
Oh, God.
Fire is our friend.
Yes.
So you got to know how to make fire. And I've talked to people who make fires with just the fire bow or the fire drill, and I haven't actually mastered it. It's really hard, but I've seen it done many times. And the drill part should be hardwood that heats, and the bottom part should be very soft, the softest wood you find, and then because that'll catch fire. And then you need, of course, the tinder right immediately there. And so ultimately, if things really get bad, eventually those who know how to make their own fire with the bow drill are probably going to be better off. But for now, I have matches and other things like that.
Right.
So, but yeah, the tinder, it could be mushrooms. There are mushrooms that work well as, tinder. And there's shavings and different kinds of very soft woods that work for the tinder. So there's all kinds of, things. But yes, even the hardest core survivors from the Native Americans like fire.
Yes, I mean, because you also not only need it to stay warm, but what about for cooking? Don't you want that also? Because that would warm your body to have warm food.
Mm-hmm. Well, somewhat, yes. The fire heats you, but the warmed food heats you later also. I mean, you got to keep it warm. It gets cold quickly. But then it's inside your body, and that will sustain your heat even if the fire goes down if you have limited wood. But, I think that some people my opinion, people overestimate cooked food. But, yeah, obviously it's easier to digest. It's probably more sanitary, in that it kills off germs. It brings heat directly into your body. So whenever you can get the heated food, it's generally good. But I also believe in foraging. And forage food, a lot of it you don't have to eat. Most corn you don't really have to cook. The sweeter corns you can just eat raw, and it's better for you.
Okay.
And also asparagus is edible raw in the springtime, but not so much. If it's imported, it's probably, which a lot of it is later on in the year, it's probably no good. But if you can get asparagus out of the ground, definitely eat it raw. And, of course, don't sue me if you get sick because, you got to make sure the soil is decent these days, whereas in the old days you didn't have to worry about these things.
Exactly.
But
There's
raw
so many
asparagus
concerns.
is awesome.
So,
yeah, there
again,
are many concerns
raw food
that never used to have.
Good. Let me ask you a question about pine, because you mentioned pine, the princess pine,
Mm-hmm.
which is something that your ancestors and your people use today. Now, I've heard you can actually eat pine bark. It can be cooked, and you can eat it. Is that true?
Mm-hmm. Yes, but it's not. I mean, that prevents starvation.
Mm-hmm.
It's hardcore. The Adirondack people, the word Larondiac means they eat bark, and they were living in the Adirondacks where there isn't much soil for growing food. It keeps you alive, but basically, I mean, it's a lot of fiber. But they made tea out of these different barks, and the teas were considered strong medicine, that really very healing. So that much I can tell you.
Okay, because
I have
heard
the nutritional value.
Yeah, pine oil. I know that is supposed to be very healing and very much a powerful healer for people,
right.
and it is available in capsules now and everything else. But that's not to say it's going to be available if everything goes down the drain. So again,
you can make your own.
That's right. That's right. You'll be able
they made my Aunt Helen. My Aunt Helen, the same one with the birds, used to serve me, tea she made with pine needles. And she said it was good in vitamin C, and that seems to be true. There's also a tea you can make out of the red spruce buds. There's a certain time of year where you harvest them. The problem is the spruce trees are really tall, and they're only mainly at the top, and, you're on your own as far as how to get them. But
right.
If such a tree fell down, you could get the red spruce buds from the top, and then you can make a tea out of it. And that is a super healer. That can heal anything.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's spruce buds, red spruce buds.
Just the red spruce.
Just the red spruce.
Other spruce buds have value, but the red spruce is the king. And I've tried it. It's prepared by native people, and it helped me with Lyme disease.
No kidding. Now that's something that's very tough to treat. So You got relief with that.
It didn't cure it. It didn't cure it. It cured the symptoms. And I was able to do a one-man concert shortly after crashing from Lyme disease because I was using the red spruce bud teas, which are delicious, actually. But, it's a 7-year cycle with the Lyme disease. So, it went through the 7-year cycle, and there were issues. But, it was amazing. I suppose if I had continually had, gone back to the red spruce, say, every year, probably would have lessened some of those, long-term symptoms. But it cleared out, the serious symptoms right away.
That's amazing, and what a good piece of information for everybody listening today, because Lyme disease is so rampant, and so many people have it. Some people have it, haven't even been properly diagnosed yet. But those symptoms can really make your life a living hell. So getting rid of the symptoms, that's a good thing.
Yeah, or at least the serious life-threatening ones, certainly. And, there's breakthroughs being made about, Lyme disease. And again, I say people are on their own in terms of, I don't want people to cut down red spruce trees, by the way. But
no, not at all.
Sometimes they fall by themselves, and some people have actually climbed them and not fallen off, and who knows.
So they've lived long enough to take the cure, which is a good thing.
Right.
That's great.
Well, there's always a balance in all these things, It's why there's a lot of skill. There's a learning curve for all these skills, and it takes a while to learn, and I would say people should start practicing, and I'm sure some of your listeners are practicing already. There's always a balance. There's always, like, a benefit and a cost to everything when you're going out to nature and living off the land, So you got it takes a while to practice that.
Well, it does, and I think it also takes a lot of just plain old listening and communication on a whole other level that many people are not used to. So I think the Native Americans of the past and even the elders today, they know how to listen. They know how to listen to the animals. They know how to listen to the trees and the wind, and they are paying attention so that they're aware. When something is about to happen, they know. And so they're even more prepared just from that level of communication. We've really lost that as a culture here in the United States. Many have. But there are still many people who hold to that and are involved with that, and if anybody is interested, then I guess they'd have to turn to those folks to learn. But that's also a very important part of this, because when you're talking about, Evan, the 30 days before winter sets in December 1, and your blood thickening, that's great. But then when you look back at how our weather patterns are changing, we've had some days in November that are 60 degrees, and that's not going to help your blood thicken for December. So...
Right, and it makes it harder. It really makes it harder.
It does.
Another thing that I didn't mention in terms of warming is, the song. Well, there's a band called Three Dog Night, right? And the Micmacs hear that. Oh, they must be Micmac, But you can feed your dogs, and your dogs will be warm, and then you can sleep with your dogs, and that'll keep you warmer. That's another thing. That's an old Micmac trick, And I guess
it
people
works.
use cats too, and it works. There's a lot. There's quite a lot of different ways.
Now,
but all these things get harder.
It's all going to be one big challenge when, it's not even if, it's when something occurs. But let me ask you a little bit, what are your thoughts on this comet? Because there's been a lot of Native American prophecy on Kachina, the blue star, I believe is what it's called.
Right.
What are your thoughts on this? We're watching this comet Ison do interesting things that people are not expecting it to do, and one of them is to change color from green to blue. So what are your thoughts?
Well, there was I believe that, and again, this is setting this whole thing into another level, and I preface this by saying one of the ways to stay warm is mentally being warm, just saying, just really focusing on ignoring the cold and just visualizing heat. But also in terms of comets, I've did experiments with, there have been some comets that were headed towards us in recent past, and I got together groups of people who are in the Native tradition to pray together and visualize the comet missing the Earth, Well, the comet missed the Earth, and so was it a coincidence? Well, I don't think so. I think that we really should, if you're talking about comets like that, and you say, oh, what can we do? It's fate. We're just all going to die. No, it's not. That's not the Native view. If you live right and you're praying, and groups of people are praying, that the comet missed the Earth. I believe, based on my experiments with this, which are not scientific, of course, but that it will be effective. But when it comes to the day when nobody's praying and nobody's living right, hey, it might hiss, and that would be bad. And I also looked into that, fascinated, by the way, by the effects of a comet hitting the Earth are really complicated because it comes down to the very hour that it hits the Earth as to where it'll hit and in what angle. And if it's big enough to actually make the Earth stop and stand still for a while, that really is going to create havoc with the winds. Or if it's hitting at a western angle, that'll be more likely to slow down the spin because the spin goes to the east. And, and if it hits in the ocean about 100 miles outside of Boston, the ocean will flood the entire East Coast. Right. Including our Micmacs,
Yeah.
But if it hits Yellowstone, it's going to trigger the magma that's underneath the volcano there. I mean, there's all kinds of scenarios. It's like it depends on the exact minute that the comet hits. You don't want this to happen. It's just too messy.
No, we don't want
this
this to happen. We absolutely do not. And again, because this has been a part of Native American prophecy for hundreds of years, so I just wanted to bring that around because we are talking about possibilities of calamities, and that could be one of them. I mean, earthquakes are another, and certainly there's just so many other things that we're facing today because our technology has outpaced our common sense, and we've placed ourselves in
out of control.
Yeah.
A lot of the technology is out of control, and I know our Looking Horse has been talking about this, and it's not just Fukushima, it's the fracking and a lot of other things are getting out of control. And again, the praying has a part to play in this prophecy. It's like, part of the prophecy could be interpreted to say if people stop doing ceremony and stop praying, then these things will get worse. So certainly don't think, it's all fate, because our prophecies are never fatalistic. It's never, this is going to happen on Tuesday the 3rd, and that's it. Goodbye. Never. It's always interactive. You always have a chance. And I feel that I have seen it change and turn around based on people, groups of people coming together. So everybody who's listening, take a moment and just pray away that comet, and it's not going to hurt, to do so.
I think there's two ways to go with this. One is the prayer and asking for us to stay safe throughout whatever is coming our way. And the other thing is right action, is people being able to stand up and say no to certain things like GMOs and other things that have poisoned our food supply and our environment. So I think there's two things people can do if they're so motivated, and I hope they are, and I hope we all are, to take on this from an inner perspective and connection with the spirit, but also an outer perspective, and not letting these corporations and other entities get away with this type of poisoning in the name of their own personal greed.
I know we're running out of time, but I want to add a funny story.
Please.
A humorous story about calamity.
Yes.
Is that there was reports of a certain asteroid, comet / evil space body that was coming towards the Earth, and people were saying, NASA hasn't dismissed the possibility. And so a bunch of us got together on this particular very beautiful spot near the Hudson River, very green grass, and we all did a ceremony together, and I led it, and I said, may the bears of the North protect this land from, the comet, and protect it for all of us, because this is part of our tradition. The bears are our protectors. And that night, I had this very vivid dream where I was there on that land, on this lawn, nicely mowed, and there were bears, big, huge bears, flat out on their backs or their fronts, with their paws and legs spread out so that their paws touched each other. And they were literally body shielding this property that we had asked them to, and they were taking it very literally. And I looked out across the land, and there were all these bears, and there were chipmunks and squirrels underneath the bears and saying, "Do you think we're safe here?" "Yeah, I think so."
Oh, so cute.
So everything we had said earlier that day in ceremony was being taken literally in my dream. And then the next day, NASA announced that the course of this particular body had changed dramatically, and that the luminosity had decreased dramatically, and it's like all of a sudden.
Ah,
so there
what
you
a beautiful
go.
story.
That's why I believe. That's why I believe in prayer.
Yes.
Because I saw all those bears all across the lawn.
Oh, and all across the world, it sounds like. That's an amazing experience. Yeah, that's an amazing
and the squirrels
experience.
Were safe.
I love that.
So the squirrels were saying, "Oh, I think we're safe under here."
That would be the people, I would imagine. So that's fantastic, and I love that because it does reinforce again our connection with everything around us. I mean, to think that we're separate from all of this is the first mistake. So.
Right.
You know, even the ancient Egyptians, you go back down that road and you see that connection to the celestial bodies and their understanding of the workings of the universe that far superseded even things that we understand today. So, there was that connection, that we're not separate from this, that made such a big difference. And that's what you're sharing also with this wonderful ceremony and dream, that, no, we're not separated from any of this. So we can make a difference, and it's a great lesson.
Well, that's what I'd like to end it on there, and just say, yeah, it all makes a difference, and we're connected.
That's terrific. Well, thank you, Evan. And again, I just want to have you give out your email address again, so that people can contact you for those papers that you wrote that you can send to them in an email.
Yes, it's Evan.Pritchard7. It's EVAN dot PRITCHARD 7 at gmail.com, and I will send specifically ask for the Beauty of Winter article, which was from, I guess, 2 years ago. And also I'll give out the website, www.algonquinculture.org. And there's a whole lot more there, and it still links you with me as well. And, again, if people are interested in getting on a list for full snow moon, that's going to be coming out probably next winter, about techniques of keeping warm and some of the stories and things I've shared today.
Oh, that's terrific, Evan. And I also want to, again, remind people about the 3 fantastic books that you have available on Amazon.com. Bird Medicine, Native New Yorkers, and No Word for Time. And again, thank you.
Native American Stories of the Sacred can also be got online.
Oh, okay. I didn't have that one on my list. Native American Stories of the Sacred. And that's available on Amazon as well?
Oh, sure.
Okay. That's terrific. Well, Evan, I hope you'll come back and visit with us again. You have so much wonderful information, and it's all stuff we need to know. So thank you again for
Well, I love your show.
Oh, thank you.
Love your show.
Well, we love having you here, so we're going to have you back, and please keep us posted on your new book that's coming out next year. Be sure to have you back to talk about that one, too. So everybody have a great day and have a safe week, and join us next week for another episode of Power Preppers.
Okay.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to tune in next week for another terrific episode of Power Preppers with Patricia Baker.